Sun News Network.
They say bad news comes in threes. Let's take a look. Osama bin Laden, dead. Anwar al-Awlaki, dead. And now Moammar Gadhafi, dead. I guess that rule applies to good news as well. With the mad dog of the Middle East en route to rotting in hell where he belongs, the question is, what does the future hold for the nation he ruled with an iron fist for 42 years? What do we know about his replacements? Daniel Wagner is Managing Director of Country Risk Solutions, and he joins us via Skype from Norwalk, Connecticut. Hi, Daniel.
Good to be with you, Charles.
What do we know?
Well, we know that the Transitional Council is composed of a very interesting group of people. For example, the head of the Tripoli municipal government is a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The country's most popular politician is an Islamic scholar, and the head of the military at the present time now used to be affiliated with a group that was associated with Al-Qaeda. So, you know, you put this kind of a group together and you end up asking yourself some pretty fundamental questions. For example, are we going to see an Islamic government coming out of this? Is democracy actually going to take root? And what does it all mean for the people?
Now, do you suppose the information that you have on these folks wasn't available to the Canadians, to the Brits, to the Americans, the French, and everyone else involved in the mission to help, quote, liberate Libya? Is there something you know that they did not know?
Well, I can't know what they did or didn't know, but I know from press reports in WikiLeaks that they've known for a long time about some of these gentlemen. A gentleman named Mr. Belhaj, who's running the military at the moment, is the one who was arrested by the CIA in 2004 at the Kuala Lumpur airport, subsequently deported to Libya, detained there and tortured there for 7 years. Now we find ourselves embracing this person. It's a very awkward position to be in. I think what ended up happening was that the various alliance governments ended up basically saying anything but Gadhafi, we want him out. They didn't really understand exactly who this band of rebels was, but their presumption was that they were going to be better than Gadhafi was. So they embraced him and gave them the support that they needed to result in what happened yesterday.
As a student of history, as a student of history, you would know two things. One, oftentimes the West bets on a horse that doesn't end up running the way the West wants it to, and we all second guess and go, we should have known better. On the other hand, and there's always another hand, sometimes, and I'm crossing my fingers as I say this, sometimes people who've got a very, very checkered track record, given the opportunity to have a government with access to real money and real power and real Western alliances, sometimes drop their old ways. So I'm just going to ask you to play with those two concepts.
Well, one of the things that we know from the transitional governing document that is supposed to be the sort of foundation of the new post-Gadhafi government in Libya says, on one hand, that it's going to be based on democratic principles. On the other hand, it says that it's going to be based on Sharia law. So is there a middle ground here where everybody can meet their own needs and they can legitimately say, on one hand, they're going to be democratic, on the other hand, they're going to, in some instances, impose Sharia law? The Muslim Brotherhood, for example, has already talked about imposing fatwas in various elements of Libyan life. That's not really a good omen at this point in time. But I do think we need to wait and see what happens. It is too early to judge. I also think there's going to be some serious infighting among the various players to jockey for top position, and ultimately that will determine what the new government is going to look like.
Okay, Daniel, here's the deal. I don't think you or me or anybody expects that they will go from what they had to what in your country is called Jeffersonian democracy, or to what in my country is called the rules of Westminster. I mean, no rational person expects that to happen. You've got the essential elements of Middle Eastern culture involved. So once again, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about this. I just don't expect them to be able to go from A to Z in 10 minutes. Here's the deal, though. If they expect to have the support of the West, and I'm talking about Canada, and I'm talking about the United States and Great Britain and all of these various countries, don't you think they might have the intelligence to become a little more Western and get farther and farther away as much as they can from the Gadhafi model?
Well, you would think so, but sometimes it isn't common sense that determines what happens next. Look, for example, what's happened in Tunisia and in Egypt. I mean, in Tunisia, an Islamic government is about to take the helm, and we know that when elections occur in Egypt, it's going to be the Muslim Brotherhood that is very likely to take control of the government. In those two instances, and very possibly in this instance, what we're seeing is you ask for a democratic approach to government. The democratic approach to government might be an Islamic government. Sometimes democracy doesn't give us everything that we want. Look at Hugo Chavez. Look at Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. Look at any number of entities, the Hamas in Palestine. I think, we have to be prepared that what we're going to see evolve in this government is not going to be at all what we had hoped or expected. And that would be my expectation.
Daniel Wagner, I hope you're wrong, but my guess is, as a person who loves freedom and Western values, my guess is you also hope you're wrong.
You bet I hope I'm wrong. But I also realize how complex societies are, how difficult the transition from authoritarian rule to, quote, democracy is. And we know that a one-size-all approach to democracy simply doesn't work in most places. And some places will never get there. I think we have to understand that as well. If you've done any time traveling around the world and really spending some time in some other countries, you may have come to understand, as I do, that perhaps not every country is actually meant to embrace democracy, certainly not the way that we know it. So we can continue to live in hope, but I'm very much a realist, and as a realist, my expectation is that this could get a little bit messy.
I don't have any doubt about that. Daniel Wagner, in the few seconds that I've got left here, should the takeaway tonight be that we should just leave well enough alone, that no matter how disgusted we are with the status quo in these countries, we should just always err on the side of stability and just stay the hell out of there. Stay the hell out of Libya, Syria, Egypt, you name it. Just put up with what we see on the tube and just eat it. Never get involved. Is that the takeaway in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. That's never really been our way. I think what's going to happen is we're going to get a real dose of realpolitik here, and we're going to see that there's only a very limited way that we're going to be influencing what's happening from here on in these countries. And I also think it's important to recognize that we don't actually have either the political wherewithal or the finances to do much else. So we should influence where we can, and I think we will try to do that. And we also have to be prepared for the limitations of our own future exercise of power.
Risky business, the world out there, and power and money going into the hands of some very, very checkered, very sketchy citizens of the world. Daniel Wagner, thank you very much for your help here.
Pleasure to be with you, Charles.
Daniel Wagner, Libya.